Boom. Okay, starting now. Okay, crap. That way I can't start it. Okay, 3, 2, 1, enter. Hey guys, what's up? It's the Culture Detective here, investigating your favorite TV shows, and yes, Game of Thrones Season 8 is finally coming, like 2 days later, I don't know, but damn, I am so excited. So yes, I'm gonna try to recap all the 7 seasons in one video, and hopefully I don't die. Game of Thrones recap, here we go. So this is the Stark family, House Stark. We have the father, Eddard, Ned Stark, marrying Catelyn Tully, and they gave birth to Robb, Sansa, Arya, Bran, and Rickon Stark, and also Ned Stark has a bastard son, Jon Snow, and also they have an adopted son, Theon Greyjoy. And then this is House Lannister. We have the father, Tywin Lannister, and the mother, who's dead, and Tywin and the mother gave birth to Cersei Lannister and Jaime Lannister and Tyrion Lannister, and between Cersei and Jaime, they had incest, so they gave birth to Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen. But, in fact, Cersei is married to the king, Robert Baratheon. And for the Baratheons, we have Robert Baratheon and his 2 brothers, Stannis and Renly. And for the Targaryens, we have Daenerys Targaryen and her brother... Why isn't it? Oh, there we go. Viserys Targaryen. All right. So for the king's group, we have Peter Baelish, Varys, Pycelle, and Jon Arryn. And as you can see, Jon Arryn just died. So the group it needs one more person as the hand. Oh yeah. By the way, the king's group is a bad word for describing, I guess, the council, the king's council, yes. And Jon Arryn just died, so they need a new hand. Therefore, all of the people from King's Landing, the capital of the world, Westeros, went into Winterfell to look for one man, and that is Ned Stark. And at the same time, Tyrion Lannister and Jon Snow went to Castle Black because Jon Snow wanted to join the Night's Watch to serve the country. Meanwhile, everyone else returned to King's Landing. Okay, let's move on. Catelyn Tully went into King's Landing very briefly and returned. Boom. So, we have Yoren, who's a friend of Jon Snow's, and then we have Ross, who's Theon's favorite prostitute, and then Catelyn Tully wants to go back from King's Landing to Winterfell, and meanwhile, Tyrion Lannister wants to go back from Castle Black to King's Landing, and they bumped into one another, and because Bran Stark was almost assassinated, and Bran Stark was Catelyn Tully's son, so Catelyn Tully suspected that Tyrion Lannister wanted to kill Bran Stark, so Catelyn Tully took Tyrion Lannister to the Eyrie to meet Jon Arryn's late wife. And then we have in Vaes Dothrak, we have Daenerys and Viserys trying to marry Daenerys to Khal Drogo. And then we also have Samwell Tarly, who is in the Castle Black and who's in the Night's Watch and who's a close friend of Jon Snow's. And then we also have Bronn, who's a close friend of Tyrion's and who helped Tyrion escape the Eyrie. And then we also have Jorah Mormont, an advisor of Daenerys Targaryen. And at the same time, Jaime Lannister and Ned Stark had a fight. The Starks and the Lannisters don't really have a good history. And of course, Sansa and Arya were there too. And then Cersei made Robert Baratheon drunk and Robert Baratheon died. Boom. Okay, where were we? Yes, Jaime Lannister and Ned Stark fought, and then Robert Baratheon died, so now we need a new king. And also Viserys died because Khal Drogo hates him, and Khal Drogo wants to marry his sister. And then we have Shae and Tywin Lannister. Shae being a prostitute, and Tywin Lannister, you know him, he's the father of all the Lannisters. And then we have Bronn and Tyrion Lannister finally going back to Tywin Lannister and his camp in the middle of Riverrun. In the Riverlands in general. And then we have Peter Baelish, a very evil and manipulative person who betrayed Ned Stark. And then we also have Syrio Forel, who is actually a sword master teaching Arya Stark how to play sword fighting. You know what I mean. And he got killed. Well, it sucks. And Ned Stark also got beheaded because now that Joffrey Baratheon became king, and Joffrey hates the Starks, so he's killing off everyone who's trying to help the Starks, but he can't kill Sansa because he is in love with Sansa. And Arya escaped, of course. And then we have Well, we have Robb Stark, Theon Greyjoy, and Catelyn Tully. After the beheading of Ned Stark, they are pissed off and they wanted to fight the Starks, so they are coming for them. And then we have a new dude, Khal Mago, who is jealous of Khal Drogo, and of course he gets killed because, you know, Khal Drogo is a badass. And then we have this Miri Maz-Dur, a witch, who is who's trying to, I think Miri Maz-Dur was also being disrespectful to Khal Drogo, and Khal Drogo. Sorry, my bad. After killing Khal Mago, Khal Drogo was injured, and Miri Maz-Dur wanted to help Khal Drogo, and both of them died because the witch wasn't successful, and Daenerys burnt the witch alive, literally. And then we have Euron Greyjoy making it to King's Landing and helping Arya escape King's Landing so that Joffrey won't kill her. And then we also have Jaime Lannister being held as prisoner again by Catelyn Tully. And then we have Tyrion Lannister and Shae making it into King's Landing. And then we also have Bronn following along. And then we have a new location, Dragonstone, where we have people like Stannis Baratheon. This is Davos Seaworth. And this is Melisandre. And this is Shireen Baratheon. Right, Shireen Baratheon, daughter of Stannis. And then we have Tywin Lannister going into Harrenhal, where Yoren and Arya stayed. And unfortunately, Yoren died. And then Arya met new people, including, spoiler alert, the Faceless Man, who actually doesn't have a face. And then, other than that, Arya also met new people like Gendry. And in a new location, we have the Storm's End, where we have Remlin, crap. What's his name? Renly shit. Alright, one sec. We have Renly Baratheon, who also wants to be king, who wants to usurp Joffrey and become king. And then we have his soon-to-be wife, Margaery Baratheon. What the fuck? Margaery Tyrell. And then we have Margaery's brother, Loras Tyrell. And then we also have Brienne from Tarth. Brienne from Tarth is a bodyguard of Renly Baratheon. Brienne of Tarth? Yeah, Brienne of Tarth. And then we have Karth, where we have Zarozan Daxos and Pius Pre. I think that's his name. Right, I haven't watched the show for a very long time, so excuse me. And then we have this fat dude, and all of them are evil people. And Daenerys and Jorah went there, and Khal Drogo went there. No, wait. He didn't. He died. And then Ross went into King's Landing, and she worked in Peter Baelish's brothel. And then Peter Baelish, he's in King's Landing, duh. And all the Tyrells went to King's Landing as well. And then we have Catelyn and Brienne working together, trying to hold Jaime Lannister as a prisoner, and Brienne trying to take Jaime Lannister elsewhere. And meanwhile, beyond the wall, by the way, for the north of Westeros, we have a wall to keep the White Walkers in. And then we have a bunch of people in the Night's Watch, and, some of them are good and some of them are bad. They went into this place called the Craster's Keep beyond the wall, and then they met Craster, who's an evil dad who's having sex with all his daughters, and one of his daughters is Gilly. And then we also have Corran Halfhand, who's a ranger, who's a talented Night's Watchman. And then we have Brienne of Tarth and Jaime Lannister. Brienne holding Jaime as prisoner, trying to negotiate with the Lannisters to take all the Starks back home. And then we have Peter Baelish going to Harrenhal for a while and then returning, almost spotting Arya, which is bad. And then we have a bad news where Theon Greyjoy goes to his family, Yara Greyjoy and his dad, because the Starks wanted ships to fight off the Lannisters, and of course they don't have ships, but Theon Greyjoy and the Greyjoys, they have ships. And then we have this dude who is Roose Bolton. Roose Bolton decided to ally with the Starks to fight the Lannisters. And then we also have Talisa Stark, who fell in love with Robb Stark. And then, of course, Daenerys kills off this dude because he's evil. And then Pius Pre wants to steal all the dragons, but Daenerys was like, nope, so he went to Pyespri and killed Pyespri, take back all her dragons, and killed the other 2 evil dudes. And then we have a new location beyond the wall where Jon Snow and Qhorin Halfhand wanted to go to because they need to fight off some wildlings beyond the wall. Northern savages. And Jon Snow met this girl, Ygritte. And meanwhile, Stannis went to King's Landing and back. Stannis and Davos because they wanted to fight the Starks because Stannis wanted to become king. So, yeah, unfortunately they kind of failed and they went back to where they were, which is Dragonstone. And then Theon Greyjoy betrayed the Starks and went to Winterfell and sacked Winterfell, causing Bran Stark and Rickon Stark to escape. And then we have this dude who got killed by Theon because Theon was an evil man, emphasize on the word was. And then we have Tywin Lannister finally making back to King's Landing, and Qhorin Halfhand was killed by the wildlings. And then we have Hot Pie, whom is Arya's friend, and they escaped Harrenhal, where they were almost held prisoners, but not really. They were just being treated really poorly. And with Hodor's help, Hodor being Rickon and Bran's close, bodyguard would be the word, they escaped, and they met this wildling. I forgot the name, sorry. Yeah, so... well, let's do a quick recap of where they are on the Westeros map. We have Davos being in Dragonstone. We have Daenerys being in Qarth. We have Jon Snow beyond the wall. Bran escaping from Winterfell to the wall because he also wants to find Jon Snow. We have Robb Stark in the Riverlands. We have, Samwell Tarly in Castle Black. Or should I say Crast Keep? Yeah, I think he's in Crast Keep. And then we have Tyrion Lannister in King's Landing, Jaime Lannister being held prisoner in the Riverlands. We have Arya Stark just escaping Harrenhal in the Riverlands. We have Theon Greyjoy sacking Winterfell, and we have his sister Yara Greyjoy in Pike. And then let's continue. We have Theon Greyjoy being captured by Ramsay Bolton after failing to conquer Winterfell. And then we have new people, the Wildlings group. Ygritte took Jon Snow to the Wildling groups, and Jon Snow realized that the Wildlings aren't really that bad. Meanwhile, Jorah, Daenerys, the dragons, and all their friends went to a new location and met this evil guy and met Melisandre, who is a loyal servant who's being treated really poorly. And then we also have Barristan Selmy, who was a very loyal person to the noblemen in King's Landing, but unfortunately the Lannisters suck, so he quit and he went to help Daenerys as well in this new place called Meereen. Wait, or is it Astapor? Yes, Astapor. Sorry. And then we have this bad guy, Locke, who pretends to be a good guy, but actually is not, and he captured Brienne and Jaime. And then the Faceless Man disappeared. And then Arya, Hot Pie, and Gendry stumbled upon this dude, Thoros of Myr, and this dude, Beric Dondarrion, and they are basically runners of the wild. They are nomads, and they worship this red god. And then we also have the Hound, who was once a bodyguard, or should I say, a bodyguard would be the right word. The bodyguard of the noblemen of King's Landing, and he ran away because, he thinks life in the capital sucks, and he met up with the guys, with the band of No House, I think. I forgot. Sorry. And then they ran into this dude, Jojen. And Jojen's sister, Mira, and then up next we have Robb, Talisa, and Catelyn Tully, and Roose Bolton trying to move forward to attack the Lannisters, and they met Blackfish and Edmund Tully, yes, and they met them up because they need allies to fight the Lannisters. Meanwhile, of course, the evil dude gets killed. Boom. Alright, anyway, Jojen, Mira, we have them trying to fight the Lannisters, Blackfish, Edmund Tully, and then, evil people are killed off. And unfortunately, Jeor Mormont, the leader of the Night's Watch, are being betrayed by some of the evil Night's Watch members, and he got killed, unfortunately, and he's also the father of Jeor Mormont. And then we also have Craster, this evil guy, and fortunately he also got killed. And then we have the Starks actually captured 2 very young Lannister boys, and one of the allies of the Starks, the Stark, got enraged because the Lannister sucks, so he killed off the 2 boys, and because he committed murder, Robb Stark had to behead him. And then meanwhile, Melisandre went to the band of no banners, the band of no house, whatever, the worshippers of the Red God, and got Gendry here because she thinks that Gendry has the king's blood, and Gendry can help Stannis win the war and become king because Gendry is actually a Baratheon. And then we have, because of the crazy outbreak that happened on Craster's Keep, so the good Night Watch members returned to Castle Black, and then Locke went to Roose Bolton. Boom. So yes, this is where we last left off. Rickon and the Wildling went away from Bran and Jojen and Meereen and Hodor because Bran wanted to go up north and visit the Three-Eye Raven, and Rickon and the other one just can't resist the cold. And then Jon Snow almost bumped into Bran but didn't, and went back to Castle Black injured. And then we have this evil guy. And then, because they wanted to fight, because the Starks wanted to fight the Lannisters, and they need a bridge to go through the Lannisters, so the Starks need to marry one of their people to Walder Frey's daughters, and yeah. And meanwhile, Ramsay Bolton with Theon Greyjoy as prisoner, torturing Ramsay Bolton. They went to Roose Bolton and Locke, and Roose Bolton went into the wedding as well. The wedding that is, the Starks marrying one of them to Walder Frey's daughter so that they could get a bridge, so that they could go to the Lannisters. And then Locke, for some reason, he went to Castle Black as well. And then, yes, we still have the evil guy, and oh shit, here comes the... Oh man. The wedding happened, and actually Walder Frey doesn't want to marry people because Walder Frey is pissed off that Talisa Stark is in love with Robb Stark, and Robb Stark is in love with Talisa, so he basically killed off Talisa, Robb, Catelyn, and and Blackfish escaped. And Roose Bolton was actually one of the bad guys actually. And and Edmund Tully is being held prisoner, and meanwhile the Hound and Arya escaped from the Red God worshippers. And then Jaime Lannister and Brienne finally made it to King's Landing. Meanwhile, we have new characters like Oberyn Martell and his love, Elara Sand. Boom. So yes, all these people, they went to King's Landing because Joffrey and Margaery Tyrell is about to get married, and yes, Joffrey is no longer in love with Sansa Stark. Sansa is being treated poorly, and oh yes, Olenna Tyrell and Mace Tyrell, the parents of Margaery Tyrell, played by Natalie Dormer, as you can see right here, they came as well, and also, Oberyn Martell and his wife. And Ross got killed because Joffrey's pissed off, and then Joffrey was surprisingly poisoned to death all of a sudden in the wedding. And then we have this one dude, Dantas Hollard, who is somehow involved in the assassination of Joffrey, and he got killed by Peter Baelish because Peter Baelish is actually the mastermind who set this all up. And then we have Jojen, Mira, Bran, and Hodor traveling further north, and then Arya and the Hound were escaping, and they ran into this one guy who was previously an asshole because he was in Harrenhal and they treated Arya poorly. So Arya and the Hound killed him off. Well, Arya killed him actually. And then Sansa Stark, secretly smuggled out of King's Landing with Peter Baelish, went away. Went away to the Eyrie, that is, to meet the evil, disgusting, gross wife of Jon Arryn. And then we have Podrick, who is a loyal servant, who is a cool person, who is very good with women, and he and Brienne decided to travel up so that they could find Sansa and bring her back. And then we have Jojen, Mira, Hodor, and Bran. Actually, before reaching the Third Eye Raven up the very, very north, they actually went to the Craster's Keep, and at the same moment, the good people of the Night's Watch went to Craster's Keep to end things, and killed off Carl and Rast, the evil people of the Night's Watch. And Locke was also there for some reason, because Locke wanted to kill Bran Stark. Well, Locke was commanded to kill Bran Stark. And Hodor protected Bran Stark and killed Locke. Well, actually, Bran Stark warged into Hodor and killed Locke, so technically Bran killed Locke. And yes, if you didn't catch that, Yara wanted to save Theon from the horrible tortures of Ramsay Bolton, but failed. And meanwhile, Petyr Baelish pushed the evil Aaron wife off because he admitted that his real love of his life is actually Catelyn Tully. And then Oberyn, so Joffrey was poisoned, and everyone thought that Tyrion Lannister did it. So Oberyn Martell stood up for Tyrion and said, hey, why not we go for a trial by combat, which means that they are going to decide who's the not the killer and who is, just by, fighting, combat. And Oberyn Martell is fighting for Tyrion, and unfortunately he failed and he died. The mountain killed him. And then we have Jorah Mormont being expelled because Daenerys suddenly realized that Jorah Mormont was working with the Lannisters before, long time ago. And then we have this new dude coming out of nowhere and fell in love with Daenerys, and this other dude, Grey Worm, who fell in love with Melisandre. And then the wildlings came to Castle Black because the wildling hates the people of the south, and they had a war. And unfortunately, because Jon Snow loved Ygritte, but they are also the wildlings, they are the enemies, and Ygritte was killed off, unfortunately, and Jon Snow was really sad about that. And then the evil ice guy also got killed, and some really good people of the Night's Watch also got killed. And Jon Snow, after the War of the North at the Castle Black, Jon Snow went up north to the leader of the wildlings and negotiated with him. Meanwhile, Gendry escaped. And then Stannis, Shireen, Davos, and Melisandre wanted to get the help of the people of the Night's Watch so that they can actually fight the Lannisters, because they were short of people. And unfortunately, after Jon Snow negotiated with the leader of the wildlings, Jon Snow and the leader went back to Castle Black, and the leader was burnt alive because the evil new leader of the Night's Watch didn't like the presence of wildlings in the behind the wall, I guess. And yes, unfortunately, he died. And then Shae got killed because Shae betrayed Tyrion. Oh yeah, by the way, Shae was a prostitute and she was in love with Tyrion for a while, but unfortunately, because Tyrion was a good man, so Tyrion kind of prioritized politics over love, and Shae was being a real bitch about it. Shae betrayed Tyrion, and yeah, Shae was killed by Tyrion out of justice. And then Tyrion also killed his dad, Tywin, because Tywin hated him, and Tywin wanted him dead because Tywin thinks that Tyrion killed Joffrey, but in fact Tyrion was a great man. And then we have this guy, Varys, who helped Tyrion escape and who also escaped himself and started working for Daenerys, far, far away from Westeros, in the continent Essos. And then, oops, what the heck just happened? So yes, Sansa escaped from Petyr Baelish and actually went to the Roose Boltons, and Petyr Baelish returned. And then, finally, Bran Stark met the Three-Eyed Raven, and before meeting the Three-Eyed Raven, they were attacked by some White Walkers, so Jojen unfortunately died. And then Brienne of Tarth almost ran into the Red Gods, but didn't, and there we go. Brienne of Tarth finally found the Hound and Arya, and the Hound unfortunately had a very brutal fight with Brienne, and Arya escaped. Oh yeah, by the way, it was a mistake that earlier on in the video I said that Brienne of Tarth and Podrick went out to look for Sansa. No, they weren't looking for Sansa. Duh, they were looking for Arya. And then anyway, Arya bumped into this guy again, the Faceless Man, because Arya crossed the sea and went into Essos as well. And yes, she bumped into the Faceless Man, and she became one of the Faceless members. And we also have this a bad girl who is really jealous of Arya. Boom. So as you can see, before Tyrion and Varys went to work for Daenerys, Tyrion actually bumped into Jorah Mormont, and Tyrion wanted to give Jorah Mormont to Daenerys so that Daenerys would feel happy about it, so that Daenerys would give Tyrion a chance to work for her. So yes, Tyrion captured Jorah and went to Daenerys. And then Jaime Lannister and Bronn had a mission to go to Dorne and take back Jaime's daughter, Myrcella. And the reason being is that, Oberyn Martell was killed brutally by the Lannisters, and now the Martells hate the Lannisters, so because they were about to marry Myrcella to a Martell, and, before the Martell kills Myrcella, they need to bring her back. And, of course, Oberyn Martell's pissed-off wife, Elara Sand, was there. And also, at the same time, we have the evil people, that is the Sons of Harpy, who wanted to cause chaos in Essos and bring down Daenerys. And Barristan Selmy died trying to fight the Sons of Harpies. And then we also have this one guy who wanted to marry Daenerys so that the place could become more peaceful, as, one of the locals marry a Targaryen, who is a nobleman and who doesn't belong to the wild of Essos where they were at the moment. And then we have this crazy High Scepter guy who wanted to bring a justice to this world by enforcing this religion that's actually really evil, and he imprisoned Loras Tyrell and Margaery Tyrell, and also Cersei Lannister, unfortunately, but also fortunately, because Cersei sucks, of course. And then this guy who was about to marry Daenerys died because the Sons of Harpy attacked again. But fortunately, Daenerys, with the help of the dragons, scared away the Sons of Harpy. And then we have the Mountain, after almost being killed by Oberyn Martell, was revived by this crazy scientist called Qyburn, and now he's a zombie. And of course, we have the crazy scientist Qyburn. And then we have Jon Snow and Tormund, who is a wildling, trying to fight off the White Walkers from the north in Eastwatch, because they heard about the news. They heard the news that the White Walkers are coming down and they need to bring them back, but unfortunately it's too late. The White Walkers had already arrived on Eastwatch. It's not Eastwatch, is it? Nope, it's Hardhome. Wrong location, it's Hardhome. And then up next, okay. Sorry, my computer is freaking out. Up next, we have Stannis, Shireen, Melisandre, and Davos going up to the very north. And, no, wait, they didn't go up to the very north. I'm sorry, I'm a stupid person. They tried to continue to go down south to fight the Lannisters, and they don't have the help of Castle Black. And, yes, they don't have people. All their food is gone, their horses are gone, and they are in a very bad position. And Melisandre said that the only way out of this is to kill off Shireen, because Shireen also has the king's blood. So Shireen was brutally burnt to death. And yeah, it was brutal. And Stannis went alone to the battlefield because no one else supported him. So Stannis alone trying to fight the people. Stannis alone trying to fight the Boltons, because before fighting the Lannisters, they also have to fight the Boltons because, they're beefing. At the same moment, Brienne of Tarth and Podrick actually bumped into him, and Brienne of Tarth was like, wait, you are the person who killed Renly Baratheon, whom I was trying to protect. So Brienne killed Stannis, and at the same time, Gilly and Samwell Tarly went to south south of Westeros to a new place because Samwell Tarly is not fit as a member of the Night's Watch, and Samwell Tarly wanted to be a scholar. He wanted to read and know things, and Gilly, his girlfriend, went down south. And at the same time, we have this Boyd, who I wanted to forget the name about, and then we also have this guy who's actually the leader of the Night's Watch after Jeor Mormont died. And, they were being a total asshole because they hate the ideas that wildlings are being in Castle Black. So they wanted to secretly kill off Jon Snow, and yes, Jon Snow was killed. And Cersei Lannister, went away from prison after the whole shame walk. And, Cersei Lannister is presumed to had repent from her sins. So, the High Scepter is basically trying to manipulate Cersei Lannister. Anyway, bad news, Elara Sand hates the Lannisters and kill off Myrcella. And, we also have Oberyn Martell's brother being the new king, not really the king, but yeah, kinda the king of Dorne, and their son, and not really their son, more like the one guy who was about to marry Myrcella but didn't, so that kid was kind of pissed off. Boom. So yes, after Jon Snow, got killed, this one guy, Edison, was really pissed off about it because he really liked Jon Snow and he's a great guy. And for some reason, Melisandre successfully revived Jon Snow. And yes, Melisandre, after Stannis got killed, arrived at Winterfell alongside with Davos. Well, they didn't arrive, they just returned. And then up next, this one guy who was in this one girl who was in love with a Ramsay Bolton got killed because she's a real bitch, and Sansa was being captured by Ramsay at that moment, and Theon actually saved Sansa, escaped from that place, and Theon killed Ramsay's love. And of course they escaped from that bad place, and they ran into Brienne and Podrick, and then Ramsay Bolton realized that he needs to continue his evil plan, and he actually killed off his dad, Roose Bolton. And then we have this new thing in Pike, where Yara Greyjoy and her dad was, and we have Euron Greyjoy, Yara's uncle, who wanted to become the king of Pike instead of Yara's dad, who was currently the king of Pike, and yes, he died. So yes, Euron became the king of Pike, and it sucks, and Yara wanted to escape. Meanwhile, Bronn and Jaime returned to Winterfell. Cersei was really sad about Myrcella's death. Cersei was going insane. And, at the same time, in Dorne, Elara Sand had the Sand Snakes, who were the assassins of Dorne. And they killed off the kid, and they also killed off the other guy who was currently king. So now Elara Sand is the queen of Dorne. And yes, Theon went away from Sansa, Brienne, and Podrick, and arrived at Pike, returning to his own home, meeting with Yara. And then we also have this guy, Meryn Trant, who's also being really bad, who's also being a total asshole, because after Barristan Selmy left and died, we need a new Kingsguard leader, and that's Meryn Trant. And Meryn Trant and Mace Tyrell actually went to Braavos. Braavos, that is a city in Essos where Arya, the Faceless Man, and the other girl were at, and they went there because of economic stuffs, because they need more gold, because the capital is kind of corrupt. It's not really corrupt. Well, actually corrupt and almost poor. So there we go. And Arya saw Meryn Trant because Meryn Trant was involved in the killing of Ned Stark. Arya killed Meryn Trant. And at the same moment, because Jon Snow revived, Jon Snow took this chance to actually hang the current Lord's Commander of the Night's Watch, and also the kid, because they both were trying to kill Jon Snow. But after Jon Snow hanged them, Jon Snow resigned as Lord Commander of the Night's Watch and handed the position to Edison, his best friend. And, well, Brienne, Sansa, and Podrick, they went to Castle Black and reunited with Jon Snow. And then we have this girl, this wildling woman, and Rickon Stark suddenly being captured by Ramsay Bolton. And it's bad news because Ramsay Bolton killed that girl and wanted to kill Rickon Stark, but first he needed to hold him hostage. Meanwhile, Daenerys, after the whole incident after season 5, Anyway, after the whole incident in season 5, because of the Sons of Harpy, she flew away with her dragons, and eventually she landed in somewhere completely unknown, and she was surrounded by these Dothraki people, and this another Khal wanted to marry Daenerys. Not marry Daenerys. Another Khal wanted to capture Daenerys so that, they could, as a prostitute, And Jorah Mormont and the other dude wanted to save Daenerys. And Daenerys got angry again and burnt the entire Dothraki village and killed off that Khal. And then we have the Night King finally showing up outside of the house of Three-Eyed Raven. Not really a house, more like a cave, but whatever. The Night King wanted to kill off Bran Stark, wanted to kill off the Three-Eyed Raven, and then the Bran Stark, because he wanted to conquer the world, and he hates humans, and, So yes, the Three-Eyed Raven was dead, and Bran became the Three-Eyed Raven. Hodor was dead, trying to defend Bran and Meera from the White Walkers, unfortunately, and Meera and Bran escaped. Meanwhile, in Braavos, the Faceless Man gave Arya a mission to kill off this actress, and Arya didn't kill off this actress. The other bad girl actually did that, and because of that, Arya was pissed off, and Arya killed that girl. And because Arya betrayed the Faceless Man, so she escaped. And then meanwhile, we have Tommen Lannister. Tommen Baratheon, but who's actually a Lannister, duh. And Tommen Lannister, after Joffrey's death, he's now the king. And then Jaime and Bronn had to go on to another mission to get Blackfish, so that they can use Blackfish. And they actually didn't want to get Blackfish, duh, my bad. They actually went to a castle, and boom. So yes, Jaime and Bronn wanted to go to a castle because they needed the castle. The King's Landing needs land, and at the same time, Blackfish actually was holding the castle. And meanwhile, Brienne and Podrick bumped into Jaime and Bronn, and because the Lannisters really wanted the castle, so they killed off Blackfish, and even Jaime Lannister didn't want to kill off Blackfish. And then we have the Hound, and he's actually alive, and he bumped into the Red God worshippers again. And then we have Yara and Euron. Euron Greyjoy became king, so Yara and Theon fled to Daenerys and tried to ally with Daenerys so that they could fight back. And then, apparently, Jon Snow's uncle is actually alive, and he's sort of like a half White Walker, half human, and he helped Bran Stark escape. Meanwhile, because Jon Snow wanted to, fight the Lannisters and fight the Boltons, they needed allies, and Jon Snow found the perfect ally, this little girl who's actually a badass. Her name was something Mormont, and she's actually one of the girls, the remaining people of the Mormonts of House Mormont, and she was actually the Lady Mormont. Yes, she is. Anyway, Rickon and Ramsay Bolton wanted to fight off Jon Snow, and thus the Battle of the Bastards. And Ramsay Bolton actually killed Rickon in front of Jon Snow. Jon Snow was pissed off. And at the same time, Peter Baelish wanted to secretly help Jon Snow and help Sansa. So Peter Baelish led a secret army to help Jon Snow. And because of that, Jon Snow successfully killed Ramsay Bolton. Anyway, Olenna Tyrell went to Dorne to negotiate because Olenna Tyrell hates the Lannisters, of course, and they wanted to cooperate to attack the Lannisters, and Varys also wanted to cooperate to attack the Lannisters. And then we have Melisandre running away again because, Davos suddenly knew that Melisandre killed off Shireen because it was actually kept a secret before, and Davos now knew, so Jon Snow exiled Melisandre. Anyway, this one guy also got away because all the rest of the people, Daenerys, Grey Worm, Missandei, Tyrion, Theon, Yara, and the dragons, they all wanted to go to Westeros, go to Dragonstone, and help fight the Lannisters because Daenerys also wanted to become queen. And then they all merged together with the help of Varys. Now Elara Sand and Olenna Tyrell were also working for Daenerys to attack the Lannisters. And Arya Stark actually went to Walder Frey. Walder Frey, who killed off Robb Stark and Catelyn Tully, who was her mother, and Robb Stark being her brother. And so Arya was pissed off and killed Walder Frey. Damn! And also Cersei Lannister is pissed off about the whole shame walk thing and High Scepter being kind of crazy and manipulative, so Cersei Lannister decided to burn down the entire Sept of Baelor, where where the High Scepter was originally trying to make the trial of Cersei Lannister happen. But of course, Cersei doesn't want the trial to even happen at all, so Cersei blew up the entire Sept of Baelor, killing off the High Scepter, killing off Mace Tyrell, killing off Margaery, Loras, Tommen. Well, because Margaery died, Tommen killed himself because Tommen was about to marry Margaery. And of course, Kevin Lannister and his son Lancel Lannister also got killed. And then Jon Snow's uncle went away after Bran and Meera went back from the north down behind the walls. And then at the end of season 6, we learned that Jon Snow is actually not Ned Stark's son, but actually Lyanna's son with Rhaegar Targaryen, who's actually the brother of Daenerys Targaryen. So yes, Jon Snow is actually a Targaryen. And then we have season 7. Where, okay, my computer's freaking out. And yes, the Daenerys gang, they went into Westeros and they finally arrived at Dragonstone, about to attack the Lannisters. Meanwhile, Jaime and Bronn, they went back to King's Landing, and they see that Cersei is being all evil now. And then Euron Greyjoy also went to King's Landing to get Cersei's help to attack the Starks and to attack the Greyjoys, and because Euron wanted some pussy. That's true though. And then we have Hot Pie, whom Arya bumped into, and they had a good chat. They had a good chit chat. And then Jorah Mormont got the grayscale because while Tyrion. Oh shit. Yeah. Well. Okay. I just suddenly realized that it wasn't Tyrion who captured Jorah. Jorah captured Tyrion. Well, anyway, Tyrion had this new disease now, grayscale, and so he was somewhere in Westeros trying to find a cure, and somehow Samwell Tarly and Gilly bumped into him. More like Samwell only. Meanwhile, Samwell's dad and Samwell's brother wanted to help the Lannisters. And yes, Jon Snow's uncle went away. So, yes, now we have the Sand Snakes also helping Elara Sand, and Elara Sand is helping Daenerys, so thus the Sand Snakes are helping Daenerys. And they wanted to go to Dorne to prepare for the war, for the ultimate war. And So did Ilara Sand. Ilara Sand also followed along. And then Euron Greyjoy Euron Greyjoy suddenly showed up and killed off the Sand Snakes. And Euron Greyjoy also captured Yara, and Theon escaped. And meanwhile, Davos Seaworth and Jon Snow also went to Daenerys because they needed help and they wanted to fight the Lannisters. And Olenna Tyrell got away because she also needed to prepare for the war. She got away and went back to her own home. And then Jaime and Bronn and a bunch of Lannisters came by, and they had a mission. And the mission is to kill Olenna Tyrell. And Olenna Tyrell accepted her own death like a boss. And yes, Samwell's brothers and dad also went there. Meanwhile, Theon Greyjoy, wait, what the heck? Right, Theon Greyjoy escaped, and Theon Greyjoy went back to Daenerys. Right, that's what happened. And Grey Worm was sent to Castle Casterly Rock, to sack Casterly Rock, to prepare for the war. And Olenna Tyrell died, of course. And Bran and Meera went back to Winterfell and met up with Sansa, and it's this huge reunion. Unfortunately, Bran Stark is now the Three-Eyed Raven, so he's all cold-blooded. And yes, Brienne of Tarth and Podrick also returned to Winterfell, and Arya also returned to Winterfell, and it's this huge reunion again. And then Daenerys, her dragons, and Tyrion wanted to fight the Lannisters, so they went to Jaime, Bronn, and their army, and they killed off Samwell's brother and dad, and Jaime and Bronn managed to escape. Well, Jaime almost died, but they also managed to escape. Anyway, Jorah Mormont returned after being cured of the grayscale disease, and now is completely loyal to Daenerys. Well, actually, he had always been completely loyal, but now Daenerys fully believed that he is completely loyal. Anyway, Tyrion and Davos Seaworth got away because they wanted to go to King's Landing to negotiate with Jaime, and they also had another plan to get back someone they used to know. And yes, they negotiated with Jaime, trying to fight the Lannisters, but Jaime declined. And Davos also got back Gendry, and they returned. And then after that, we have Jon Snow, Jorah, Davos, and Gendry going up north. And the reason why they're doing it is because Tyrion just negotiated with Jaime because Tyrion wanted to show Cersei Lannister that there are White Walkers in the north, and that the entire world needs to prepare themselves for the icy, wintry chaos that is about to happen. So that's basically what happened in the negotiation. And in order to prove that White Walkers exist, Jon Snow, Jorah, Davos, and Gendry went up north with the help of the worshippers of the Red God to capture a White Walker and to show Cersei Lannisters that White Walkers exist. Meanwhile, Samwell Tarly and Gilly, after being fed up of all this knowledge stuff, after curing Jorah, went back to Winterfell. And then, of course, while the 7 boys were trying to capture the White Walker, shit happened. And Daenerys and Tyrion went there, and with the dragons, they successfully attacked the White Walkers and escaped, and they successfully captured a White Walker as well. And in the process, Thoros of Myr got killed off. And also one of the dragons got killed off by the Night King, and now became a nice dragon. And then, meanwhile, while all the people escaped except for Jon Snow, Jon Snow's uncle actually helped Jon Snow escape as well, and he also got killed. And then at the end, Peter Baelish actually secretly wanted to make the Starks fail, and secretly wanted to make Sansa hate Arya. And Sansa was really smart, so she decided to kill off Peter Baelish. And then we have the huge meetup where Tyrion, Theon, Melisandre, Daenerys, Varys, Gendry, Davos, Jorah, Jon Snow, and the 2 dragons met up with the people of King's Landing in order to show Cersei that White Walkers exist. And here's a bit of a recap. You know, Davos is in Dragonstone, so is Daenerys, so is Jon Snow. Meanwhile, Euron Greyjoy just went away from King's Landing because he needs to prepare for the war. And then Samwell Tarly was at Winterfell. Tyrion was with Daenerys. Jaime also escaped from King's Landing from Cersei because Jaime started to realize that the Lannisters suck ass. And then Arya was at Winterfell. Theon was with Daenerys, but he's also going somewhere else because he wanted to save Yara from Euron, the evil uncle. Cersei Lannister is in King's Landing. The Hound is up north. And we have, Grey Worm still in Casterly Rock. And here's a bit of a recap. Oops. So here's a bit of a recap. Here are the good guys up top. All of these are good guys. And we have 3 big baddies. The Night King, Cersei Lannister, and Euron Greyjoy. And on Season 8, they need to somehow find a way to kill all 3 of these people. So there we go.